Welcome back to another episode of Plant-Based Dads. I'm Joey. We are a vegan, mostly whole food cooking channel. We do some product reviews. Sometimes there's some episodes with Tim. If you like what you hear so far, please hit that like button. Show us some love. And please think about subscribing and becoming part of the Plant-Based Dads family. We do have a Patreon page set up. Our patrons are our monthly financial supporters that do help us put the show together and get the plant-based message out to the public. If you've ever seen the show, or if you're in the Facebook group and you've thought, how can I be part of this? How can I help? That's how you can help. You can become a patron and be a monthly supporter. You can also just do a one-time donation with PayPal if you like. There's a link to both Patreon and PayPal in the show notes below this video. All right, so for today's video, game day is here. And one of my favorite things to have on game day is some chips and homemade cheesy chili dip. I've got a really fun cheesy chili dip that we use. We use it for more than game day. And you probably want to make your own chips with it, or maybe use some unsalted pretzels. However you want to do, it's fine. But I'm going to show you how to make a great oil-free, nut-free, white bean-based chili cheese dip that you're absolutely going to love. You can eat as much of this stuff as you want. It's all starch solution compatible. It's just some starches. I would just be careful with what chips you serve it with. One of the things we like to do is we like to take that Trader Joe's pita bread. It's a picture of it right here. It's the whole wheat one, and it's only got like 1 gram of fat per pita. And I cut that up into little triangles, and I toast those in the oven, and I use those to dip the cheese dip with. It's so good, and you're not getting all the salt and oil from the tortilla chips. So that's one of the options that we do with it. In the video that I'm making here, I'm going to show you it with just chips around the bowl because I need to do that for for the thumbnail and for Instagram. But when you make this, don't use salted, oil-cooked tortilla chips. That's going to defeat the purpose of making this dish. All right, it's a really easy dish to make. You're absolutely going to love this. It's going to go perfect for your game day festivities. Let's get to the food. In a blender, I'm starting with 1 can of white beans. I've drained these and rinsed these well and let them dry. I'm just going to dump those right into the Vitamix here, but any blender will do. Next, I'm adding 1 cup of any type of plant milk, non-sweetened. I'm using oat milk here. After that, I've got about 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast, nooch. Then I'm adding 1 whole orange bell pepper diced up. Next, I've got 2 teaspoons of chili powder. Then I've got about 2.5 tablespoons of lemon juice, about 1 lemon juiced. Next, it's 2 teaspoons of yellow mustard. I'm just gonna add that right to the blender. And I'm gonna sprinkle in just a little bit of salt for flavor here. Then I'm gonna put the cover on the blender and just bring this over to the stand and mix it up. I mix this for about a minute. It's nice and smooth. It's thin, but it's gonna get heated up. But you can see there's no chunks or anything left. And it's just beans and some spices, so it shouldn't take much to blend this. Next, I've got a non-stick skillet, and I'm putting a little bit of water to saute the veggies. You wanna make sure there's always a little bit of water in here since we're not using oil. Then I've got a whole white onion just diced up that I'm gonna toss in here. I'm gonna move this around and stir fry this onion and make sure it gets nice and soft and translucent. While I'm doing this, if it looks like it's sticking to the bottom, I'm just gonna add a little bit more water and make sure it doesn't stick. When you're adding more water, just make sure it stays a little wet, but don't add so much water where it changes the temperature of the pan. There's definitely a finesse to water sauteing. Next, I'm adding a whole 15-ounce can of black beans, drained and rinsed. Oh, it's already starting to look good. Now I've got 1 cup of salsa. Just make sure it's a clean salsa with no oil. Here I'm using about 2 tablespoons of salt-free taco seasoning. You can use Mrs. Dash, you can use some homemade stuff. This is just a salt-free Mexican seasoning from Sprouts from the bulk bin. And now I'm just gonna use my wooden spoon to mix this all up. I wanna make sure I get it nice and combined so it cooks evenly. I wanna make sure all of those onions and beans get coated with that seasoning. You can see here it's just steaming and cooking. I like to use the wooden spoon on this because it does a better job of scraping the bottom, and that's where all the flavor is. The silicone spoon just doesn't work the same way. I also decided to add a 4-ounce can of hatch chilies that I had in the cabinet just to bring up the flavor a little bit, so you can throw those in there at any time. Those are already cooked. And I'm just mixing the chilies in. Again, I'm using my wooden spoon so I can scrape the bottom. That's where all the flavor is down there. I don't want to keep that stuff moving and mixed in. I'm going to let this stuff cook for about 5 to 7 minutes in total before I start adding anything else. After about 5 to 7 minutes, it's time to pour in the bean sauce that we made. I'm just going to dump it right out of the blender and right into the skillet here. This will thicken up nicely once it cooks a little bit. Now I'm using a spoon just to kind of mix it in here and give it a little mixy-mixy. And I'm just gonna let this come to a little boil, simmer here, and let it all heat up together. When that little bubbling happens and it starts spitting the stuff out at me, I usually throw a cover on it just to keep it from getting all over the place. I'm gonna let this cook for about 5 minutes. All right, here you can see it's simmering nicely. I'm just gonna mix it up. Oh, look at that. This is looking good. So many possibilities for this right here. This is so much more than something to eat with chips. Imagine this on a potato, yum. Now I'm just gonna test this with a little flat pretzel here and make sure it's good. And it's a winner. Let's plate this up. All right, I've said this before, but yellow makes me happy. I've got this cool little Mexican dish I got when we were in Mexico on a cruise. I got a bunch of these. Every time we hit Mexico, I grab one of these things. I absolutely love them. They're made by hand. I'm gonna dump in some of my cheesy chili dip, and I'm gonna add some chips around the outside of the plate just for photos, but you should probably use some cooked pita bread. And now I'm gonna dump a little bit of cilantro on top because that's all I had. And there you have it, folks. A beautiful plate of game day cheesy chili dip. You can eat as much of this as you want. Dig right in. That's our video for today. Hit that like button, show us some love. Don't forget to subscribe so you get notified every time we have a new video, usually every Monday. And leave a comment below. What are you doing for game day? Are you making this dip? Or are you making my tachos from last year? Those are amazing. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.